there's been some late breaking stuff going on in Topeka this week. One item, particularly regarding the COVID property tax um, business relief bill, with information coming out about that from yesterday into today. We've asked Mike Taylor, who works as our lobbyist in Topeka for us, to come in and give an update on this one bill and as where things are going and the potential impacts that we're looking at. Mr. Mike, can you move from here? Go from here?
Yes, I got it. Thank you very much. Mike Taylor, Public Relations Director for the Unified Government. What I want to talk about is House Bill 2313, otherwise known as the Retail Storefront Property Tax Relief Act. It is a mega tax bill that got passed out of committee late on Tuesday, was on general orders in the full Senate on Wednesday, and showed up in the House on Thursday. Now, that is to also say that there was no time for really vetting the bill or having any real hearings on the bill where testimony was taken. So let me go through what it does, because it's quite complex and there's a number of bills put into one. So this measure is really designed for small businesses, mom and pop kind of shops. Big box stores, grocery stores, liquor stores, other things are exempted from applying for this. So it's for businesses with 50 employees or less that had a 2019 income between $10,000 and $2.5 million, and they had to have received less than $150,000 in any kind of federal stimulus funds. Now, those businesses could file claims if their 2020 and 2021 incomes for their business were less than the 2019 income. And they would have until June of 22 to file those claims. Each business that files would get $7,500 for 2020 and $7,500 for 2021. The cost for this is estimated at $44 million for losses from 2020, and $30 million of that would come from the state general fund. 14 million of that would have to be paid from county general funds. For 2021, the cost is estimated total cost at 25 million, with $16 million coming from the state general fund and 8 million coming from county general funds. So you don't have to do the math. That's 67% state funding and 33% paid by the counties. The money is intended for businesses who lost profits or money due to COVID restrictions. But one of the things we're very concerned about in reading the language of the bill, because it was put together in such a hurry, is it references any emergency declaration in the future. So that would include natural disasters. So if there is a flood, a tornado, a fire, or we have a microburst that knocks down power lines and trees, and we have to declare an emergency, or the governor declares one for our county, and it closes businesses for a period of time while the cleanup is done, they could then, anytime in the future, also apply for this kind of reimbursement from the state and the county. That's very troubling to us because, as you know, in an emergency, there's almost always a declaration declared, if not by our own emergency manager, certainly by the governor. And that's what allows us to be able to then access FEMA money or small business loan money for those businesses to help reimburse for expenses. So we're really concerned about this section of the bill, and I want to go on and go through the rest of it because it doesn't stop there. They rolled into this something called the Golden Years Tax Act, and it's meant to protect seniors. The way it would work is if you lived in a house up to $395,000 in value and you make less than $50,000 in income, your property tax would be locked in place until the home sold. So even if the assessed value of the home went up, your value would stay locked in at whatever it is on the base year. It's estimated that it would have a $7 million fiscal note in the first year, which would be 2022, And that would compound potentially at $7 million a year for every year thereafter. So the fiscal note could get to be rather large, assuming that values continue to go up. So what that means is, let's just say a 70-year-old person marries a 30-year-old person and the 70-year-old dies. If the 30-year-old continues to live in the house for another 40 years, that tax rate is locked in almost in perpetuity, or for those remaining years, until the house is sold or the person moves out. And then those taxes would have to be repaid through a sale of the house or relatives that inherit the house. It would eventually be made up, but it could be years before that happens. Another piece is for active National Guard members living in Kansas. They would not have to pay property tax on up to 2 vehicles that they own. So they would be able to be tax-free on 2 vehicles. The other thing that the Senate did, which was very clever, is they still haven't funded public education. So they rolled in the 20 mil tax levy for schools into this bill, hoping that it would push the House to approve it. The House is not real fond of this bill, and I said in a briefing this morning on it, and the House later this afternoon did agree to non-concur in all the things the Senate put in this bill and potentially hold a conference committee on the bill. So we'll see where it goes. We're watching it obviously very closely, but it's going to clearly throw the legislature into next week if they have to meet and try to negotiate this bill. One positive about this is there was also a piece of the bill originally that looked at competition with private business that comes from government or nonprofit services or agencies. Think in Wyandotte County, think Sunflower Hills Golf Course, which is ours, and then there's Victory Hills Golf Course, which is private, and Dubs Dread. Under what was originally proposed, we would have had to rebate 100% of the property taxes on those 2 private golf courses. And this could extend to, we're not sure what all kinds of services, which is why they pulled it out of the bill and have asked, and Legislative Post Audit will be doing an audit of local governments and nonprofits over the summer. And then we'll likely have hearings in the fall to see just how extensive this issue is. So that's House Bill 2313. There's another tax bill I'll mention quickly, which is also troubling. It's Senate Bill 286. It calls for American Rescue Plan funds to be used to reimburse businesses if there were any restrictions in place because of COVID. Now that includes social distancing orders, restricted hours, restricted capacity, complete shutdowns, even mask mandates would be considered under this as something that was detrimental to business. Now, the way they set this up, and it's getting a lot of criticism, there would be a 3-person panel, one appointed by the governor, one by the House Speaker, and one by the Senate President. They would meet in secret and decide what size of award each business would get. The Attorney General would then review those, and he would get to distribute the money. It's estimated by the state legislative research there could be as many as 23,000 claims filed under Senate Bill 286. The state would pay damages for state mandates. Counties would pay damages for any county mandates out of money that they receive from the federal government. Now, the bill will also require that counties set aside 35% of any unspent or unencumbered funds that we might receive from the American Rescue Plan. That actually, as bad as that sounds, that's an improvement, because up until today, it was 100% of the money would have to be set aside to pay those claims. The Senate pushed and got both these bills passed. As I said, no real hearings and no consequential vetting. The House is very lukewarm to both bills, especially coming to them this late in the session. In fact, this morning in the hearing, one representative said, it's like we're boarding the Titanic and these bills are the iceberg. So there is not a lot of enthusiasm on the House side for this bill, or either of these bills. So ultimately, what we're hoping is that the House doesn't act on them, because as you can tell, it would be a huge cost for not only the state government, but for county government. I'll stop there and see if there are any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Commissioner Ramirez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Taylor, for everything you do for us in Topeka and keeping track of everything that is happening. Just like I said with the emergency management bill, these are two pieces of legislation. With the Senate bill that pertains to the American Rescue Plan. I know that the federal government is still providing guidance to state governments and local governments and everybody that's going to receive it. Is the state allowed to dictate how and what we can use that funding for?
Well, Commissioner, that's a very good question. And we don't really know the answer yet because we haven't received, the state has not received, and we as a local government have not received any guidance from the Treasury Department yet. So it is possible that the federal government could say, nope, you can't use that money this way. But we don't know that yet. In the meantime, this will be in state law. So there is a potential conflict there between what the federal government might tell us and what the state has passed as law, if this in fact passes. That's going to be a major conflict that'll have to be worked out.
Okay. That was when you were talking about the bill, that was the first thing that came to my mind was, through the guidance, are the state allowed to tell us what we're to do with that funding? But my second question, it pertains to the golden years. Correct me if I'm wrong, that was Senator Pittman who introduced that bill, correct?
No, it was actually Senator Tom Holland out of Baldwin City,
Okay.
Douglas County. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I believe Senator Pittman co-signed with him. But
I think. Mhm.
What was the reasoning for Senator Holland's for wanting to introduce that bill?
Well, Senator Holland has actually pushed for this for a couple of years. I think he feels like older citizens, because of values rising and in some places mill levies going up, that older people are being taxed out of their homes, and he wanted to do something to help. There used to be a thing called a circuit breaker for seniors, that if their taxes went up a certain amount, that circuit breaker would kick in and they would get some kind of a tax break through a rebate. This would simply just freeze the value of their home. And it was interesting when this was proposed, there was some kind of questions about how does someone with a $50,000 income live in a house that's $395,000. But those are the numbers that they put in. And he's tried to get this for a number of years. So he actually made the amendment on the floor to blend it in with this House Bill 2313.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation. I was just curious on the Senator Holland's thinking on the bill, or his specific portion of the bill.
Right.
I hope the House doesn't approve these bills or vote for these bills as they are. Hope they work with the Senate to make them, I don't even know if they can be even better, but I just hope in the future that legislature wants to work with local governments and ask the opinions of local governments before they start dictating what we can and cannot do. I mean, they do that every day, but especially when it comes to our finances and how we allocate money, I hope in the future that is something that is changed and that they actually meet with us or meet with county administration of all around the state to figure out how this impacts counties. So like I said, I just hope that's something that can be changed in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bynum?
Thanks, Mayor. Mike, on the Golden Years bill, is it Senate Bill 76?
It started out initially as that, but then that didn't advance, and so Senator Holland was able to get it amended into this bill, House Bill 2313.
Okay. So I guess my question is, I had been corresponding with Senator Ethan Corson out of Johnson County about Senate Bill 76, and he had sent a briefing to me that at that time indicated the tax relief portion of that was going to be 100% state funded, and it would come in the form of a rebate when you file your taxes. So is that not the case anymore on that particular?
No,
line?
No, I think, sorry to interrupt. I think that is still the case. So the county would not be, I'll say, on the hook for any kind of actual money, except as values continue to go up, as we've been seeing in Wyandotte County and all over, we wouldn't get the benefit of those increased values.
Okay. So it freezes the valuation and provides a rebate to the taxpayer if they fit in the certain parameters.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And that would come from the state.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner McKiernan,
Hello, Mike. Thanks for the information. I guess all the questions will be about the Golden Years legislation tonight. I'm curious, would county appraisers continue to assign a value to each property, even if the value that would be taxed would be frozen?
It's my understanding that they would continue, because under appraisal laws, they have to appraise every property every so many years. So I think, and that would also give us benchmarks of what that property is actually worth, even though the taxes paid would be at a lower level.
Well, I certainly have heard some concern about people who are on fixed incomes in a rapidly appreciating housing market being concerned about how they would pay an increased bill. But I guess a question would be, what would happen if the appraised value of the locked-in amount?
I don't think I have a ready answer for you on that. I don't remember that being discussed or written into the bill, but I could check that for you and get you back an answer.
Well, certainly I would appreciate that, because I'm thinking, okay, you lock in, and if it goes up, there is no penalty to you. But what happens if it goes down? So it's all benefit there. And I'm curious, if the housing value at the time of a future sale is higher than the locked-in value, do taxing jurisdictions recover any of that uncollected tax? I don't know, kind of capital gains tax would be somewhat of an analog there.
My understanding is, yes, that someone who bought the house would then have to make up for all of those taxes that didn't get paid because of the rate lock. So eventually, my understanding is eventually we would become whole, but we don't know how many years down the road that would be. But that would come from a new owner who's purchasing that property.
Well, that would add a real interesting twist to the home sale process if you had to disclose and potentially pay taxes from a previous owner. Interesting. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.